interest rates, and the intentional birth of the American consumer. The first thing we did to keep the economy afloat after the war was keep interest rates low. This wasn't an easy decision because when soldiers came home to a shortage of everything from clothes to cars, it temporarily sent inflation into double digits. The Federal Reserve was not politically independent before 1951. The President and the Fed could coordinate policy. In 1942, the Fed announced it would keep short-term rates at 0.38% to help finance the war. Rates didn't budge a single basis point for the next 7 years. 3-month Treasury yields stayed below 2% until the mid-1950s. The explicit reason for keeping rates down was to keep the cost of financing the equivalent of the 6 trillion we spent on the war low. But low rates also did something else for all the returning GIs. It made borrowing to buy homes, cars, gadgets, and toys really cheap, which, from a paranoid policymaker's perspective, was great. Consumption became an explicit economic strategy in the years after the World War II. An era of encouraging thrift and saving to fund the war quickly turned into an era of actively promoting spending. Princeton historian Sheldon Garin writes, after 1945, America again diverged from patterns of savings promotion in Europe and East Asia. Politicians, businessmen, and labor leaders all encouraged Americans to spend to foster economic growth. Two things fueled this push. One was the GI Bill, which offered unprecedented mortgage opportunities. 16 million veterans could buy a home, often with no money down, no interest in the first year, and fixed rates so low that monthly mortgage payments could be lower than a rental. The second was an explosion of customer credit, enabled by the loosening of Depression-era regulations. The first credit card was introduced in 1950. Store credit, installment credit, personal loans, payday loans, everything took off, and interest on all debt, including credit cards, was tax deductible at the time. It tasted delicious, so we ate a lot of it. A simple story in a simple table. Household debt in the 1950s grew 1.5 times faster than it did during the 2000s debt splurge. 3. Pent-up demand for stuff fed by a credit boom and a hidden 1930s productivity boom led to an economic boom. The 1930s were the hardest economic decade in American history, but there were a silver lining that took 2 decades to notice. By necessity, the Great Depression had supercharged resourcefulness, productivity, and innovation. We didn't pay that much attention to the productivity boom in the 30s because everyone was focused on how bad the economy was. We didn't pay attention to it in the 40s because everyone was focused on the war. And then the 1950s came around and we suddenly realized, wow, we have some amazing new inventions and we're really good at making them. Appliances, cars, phones, air conditioning, electricity. It was nearly impossible to buy many household goods during the war because factories were converted to make guns and ships. That created pent-up demand from GIs for stuff. After the war ended, married, eager to get on with life, and emboldened with new cheap consumer credit, they went on a buying spree like the country had never seen. Frederick Lewis Allen writes in his book The Big Change, during these post-war years, the farmers bought a new tractor, a corn picker, an electric milking machine. In fact, he and his neighbors between them assembled a formidable array of farm machinery for their joint use. The farmer's wife got the shining white electric refrigerator she had always longed for and never during the Great Depression had been able to afford, and an up-to-date washing machine and a deep freeze unit. The suburban family installed a dishwashing machine and invested in a power lawn mower. The city family became consumers of a laundromat and acquired a television set for the living room. The husband's office was air-conditioned, and so on endlessly. It's hard to overstate how big the surge was. Commercial car and truck manufacturing virtually ceased from 1940 to 1945. Then 21 million cars were sold from 1945 to 49. Another 37 million were sold by 1955. Just under 2 million homes were built from 1940 to 45. Then 7 million were built from 45 to 50. Another 8 million were built by 1955. Pent-up demand for stuff and our newfound ability to make stuff created the jobs that put returning GIs back to work. And they were good jobs too. Mix that with consumer credit, and America's capacity for spending exploded. The Federal Reserve wrote to President Truman in 1951. By 1950, total consumer expenditures together with residential construction amounted to about $203 billion, or in the neighborhood of 40% above the 1944 level. The answer to this question, what are all these GIs going to do after the war, was now obvious. They were going to buy stuff with money earned from their jobs making new stuff, helped by cheap borrowed money to buy even more stuff.